I told myself I was just checking on him. That's it. That's all it was supposed to be. I didn't plan to stay. I didn't plan to sit down. And I definitely didn't plan to let the door close behind me. But then again, he wasn't supposed to look at me like that. It was the night of his brother's birthday, my boyfriend's birthday, and everyone had left hours ago. Empty bottles on the kitchen counter. Music still faintly playing from someone's forgotten speaker. I stayed behind to help clean up. That was the excuse I gave. But truth is, I noticed he never came downstairs. Not once. And something about that just felt off. So I climbed the stairs. Slowly. Quietly. The hallway light was out, but his door was cracked open, just enough to see the edge of the bed. I knocked once. Soft. Barely a tap. Then I pushed the door open. And there he was. Sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it was whispering secrets. The lamp beside him cast a low amber glow. His sleeves were rolled up to his forearms. And for a second, just a second, I forgot how to speak. He looked up. No smile. No surprise. Just this still, unreadable expression. Like he'd been waiting for me without knowing it. And then he said it. You don't have to leave yet. I should've. I know that. But I didn't. And maybe, that's when everything started to change. He was always the quiet one. Not cold, just distant. Like he lived 2 seconds behind everyone else. A slow blink. A delayed smile. Always somewhere else. When I first met his family, I thought he didn't like me. He barely said a word. Didn't ask questions. Didn't offer much. But then one night I caught him watching me from across the room. Not in a creepy way. More like he was memorizing something. Something small. I think that's when I started noticing the little things. How he always stood with one hand in his pocket. How he laughed quietly to himself, like no one else was supposed to hear. How he never interrupted but somehow always knew what I was trying to say. He never flirted. Never crossed a line. But I always felt seen around him. In a way that scared me a little. Because he wasn't supposed to look at me like that. And I wasn't supposed to feel it back. That night, standing in his doorway, I felt it all over again. That silence. That pull. He didn't ask why I was there. Didn't mention his brother. Didn't move. Just sat there quietly like he knew something was coming. Like he was bracing for it. I told him I was checking in. That the others had gone. That I was just about to leave. But when I turned to go, he said my name. Just my name. Soft. Low. Like it tasted different in his mouth. And I froze. Because in that one moment, think we both knew. This wasn't about checking in anymore. And it hadn't been for a while. I didn't mean to sit down. Just happened. Like my body moved before my thoughts caught up. Like there was gravity between us, soft, invisible, undeniable. He shifted slightly, just enough to make space on the edge of the bed. And I took it. Not because he asked. Not because I wanted to cause anything. But because I needed to understand what was happening between us. This quiet electricity that had lived in the background too long. We sat in silence for a while. Not awkward, not exactly. But charged. I could feel the heat from his arm, even though we weren't touching. His breathing was calm, but his hands resting on his knees were tense. Like he was holding something back. I asked if he was okay. He said he was just tired. And then after a long pause, he added, "It's always louder when it's quiet." I didn't know what he meant. But I felt it. Because in that stillness, every unspoken thing between us got louder. The glances. The timing. The moments that lasted just 1 second too long. I looked down at my hands in my lap. He looked at me. And when I finally met his eyes, it was like something in me unlocked. Not lust. Not even love. Just clarity. That whatever this was, it had been building for longer than either of us wanted to admit. And then without a word, his hand reached toward mine. Not to take it. Not to hold it. Just close enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin brushing the air between us. An invitation. Not a command. Not a mistake. And I could have pulled away. But instead, I moved closer. I don't remember deciding to stay. I just know that I never stood up. We sat like that, barely touching, barely breathing for what felt like hours. The lamp behind him cast shadows across his collarbone, soft and golden. I watched the way his throat moved when he swallowed. And then I looked away because I had to. Because looking at him too long felt like saying something I couldn't unsay. But even when I looked down, I could still feel him. That quiet presence. That impossible calm. Like he wasn't reaching for me. But if I leaned in just 1 inch, he'd never let me go. I whispered, "This isn't right." And he didn't argue. He didn't say anything at all. Just stared at the floor like he was trying to find the version of himself that could walk away from this. But then, his knee brushed against mine. Accidental. Maybe. But neither of us moved. And something inside me just broke open. All the guilt. All the hesitation. It didn't disappear. It just didn't matter as much as it should have. Because right then, the air between us was thick with everything we never said. And when he finally looked at me again, really looked, his eyes weren't asking for permission. They were asking if I felt it too. And God help me. I did. I didn't lean in. Not at first. I think I was still hoping he would stop me. Say something. Break the spell. But he didn't. And somehow that silence felt like a yes. Not a reckless one. Not even a brave one. Just inevitable. He lifted his hand slowly and tucked a piece of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my cheek. And that's when I stopped breathing. Because that touch, it wasn't casual. It wasn't friendly. It was careful. Like I was something breakable. Like he'd been holding this in for too long. I turned my face into his palm without meaning to. Instinct. Weakness. Want. And that was it. Something shifted. Like the room itself leaned toward us. Like the whole world tipped. And then finally he moved. But it wasn't a kiss. It was a collapse. His forehead against mine. His breath warm on my lips, not quite touching. His hand at the back of my neck holding me in place gently. Like a question. And I didn't answer with words. I didn't need to. I just let my eyes close. And in that fragile pause between almost and too late, everything we'd been denying came rushing in. The first time our lips touched, it wasn't even a kiss. It was softer than that. Slower. More like a question neither of us wanted to answer out loud. Just breath meeting breath. His thumb tracing my jaw like he was memorizing it, like he needed proof I was real. And then, I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. Or maybe we were already moving long before that night. All I know is, my hands found the fabric of his shirt. And his breath caught like he wasn't expecting it. But he didn't stop me. He just exhaled. Low. Shaky. Like he'd been holding it in for months. And when his hand slid around my waist. Not urgent, not demanding, just there. My whole body answered before my mind could protest. It wasn't rough. It wasn't wild. It was something quieter. Deeper. Like we were both aching for closeness, not just contact. The kind of touch that doesn't ask, "Do you want me?" But rather, "Do you feel this too?" And I did. God, I did. I felt it everywhere. In the way he trembled when my fingers grazed his neck. In the way my name sounded in his throat, half whisper, half prayer. And in the way we both went still. Right before everything could go too far. Because in that silence, we remembered who we were. And who we weren't supposed to be. But the damage was already done. And there was no going back from this. After we didn't speak. Not for a long time. He stayed close. Forehead still against mine. Breath still uneven. And his hands, one on my back, the other tangled in the edge of my sweater. They didn't move. Like if he let go, the moment might disappear. Like I might. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Not fast. Just heavy. And the worst part? I didn't feel regret. Not yet. I felt warm. Anchored. Like I'd been drifting for months and didn't realize it until he steadied me. His thumb was still tracing small circles into my side. Like he didn't know he was doing it. And I let him. Not because it was right. But because it was real. Because for once I wasn't pretending. Not to be okay. Not to be loyal. Not to be in love with someone who never really saw me. He did. He always had. And I hated myself for craving it. For needing that kind of closeness from the one person I was never supposed to touch. But in that quiet, in that dimly lit room where nothing made sense and everything felt too much, we just stayed there. Not lovers. Not liars. Just two people who crossed a line they couldn't uncross. And in that moment, with my head resting against his chest, I remember thinking, what happens now? I left before the sun came up. The hallway felt colder somehow. Every step away from his room felt like something tearing quietly, not loud enough to cry out, but deep enough to bruise. He walked me to the door. Didn't try to stop me. Didn't say what we both knew was sitting between us, still warm and breathing. We didn't kiss goodbye. We just stood there. Two people with too much history and no map forward. And then he opened the door. Cool air hit my skin like a reality check. Like the night had never happened. Like I could still pretend. But the way he looked at me, that look stayed. It followed me down the steps. Into my car. All the way home. That look wasn't lust. It wasn't guilt. It was something worse. It was hope. And I hated that I felt it too. Because I still had to see his brother the next day. Still had to smile. Still had to play normal. But every time I closed my eyes, it was his breath I remembered. His hands. His silence. That impossible stillness between us. The part of me I left behind in that room. And I keep telling myself it was a mistake. That it can't happen again. But late at night, when everything else goes quiet, I still hear his voice. You don't have to leave yet. And the worst part is, I don't want to.